Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Zeman. I'm an autistic blogger of my own blog website, The World of Autism. You may know that I've been conducting guest interviews as like my own mini podcast for my blog website for a little over a year now. And I've had over like almost about 40 guests in over a year. So I've had autistic self-advocates come on, parents, therapists, I've had teachers come on, you name it. And it's all in the purpose of educating and advocating for people with autism and speaking of, with tonight today I actually have a guest on. And the funny thing with this guest is that she is from Florida like I am. And not only that, her name's Michelle also. So so here we go. We have Michelle Z on here. How are we doing, Michelle?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. I'm doing well too. I'm doing well. Thank you. So let's get this started and have you talk a little bit about yourself, about like with your journey as an autistic woman.
Absolutely. So to get an idea. So first of all, I was diagnosed when I was 3 years old. My mom took me through the diagnostic process, and then her biggest call to action was, okay, I need to do something. And so she got me the services that I needed. And then she basically got me to a good point where I was able to mainstream. I was able to fit in like with my other peers essentially. But then when I got into college, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. When I went to college, I had actually decided to go for journalism. However, about 2 years into college, I made the decision to actually go in the route of ABA. And I didn't end up doing that until my graduate career, because what ended up happening was I ended up spending volunteering time with my old speech therapist. And my speech therapist, I had a great rapport with her. I had her for over 6 years, to give you an idea. And I got to volunteer at her clinic, which I thought was fantastic. I got to work with kids with social skills, so they were working on that. And then from there, I started working in ABA. My first exposure was actually in a residential setting. Um, so I worked with autistic women, anywhere between 13 and 21. And then I started working in the clinic very shortly after. So I worked with kids as young as 3 and as old as 17. A few years later, I moved down to Florida, where after about a year of living in Florida, I actually got my board certification. And I've been pretty much doing that ever since. I got into supervision a couple years after I got my BCBA, and I've been a clinical director before. But yeah, now I'm pretty much just like helping one of my friends start a business from like the ground up. So it's really exciting.
It is really exciting. And like for me, my story is very similar to yours, especially like being diagnosed early on. Like for me, I was diagnosed at 2 years old because
Yeah.
that with, with me it was that my parents, they noticed things were different about me, but they didn't really know exactly if it was autism per se. But we were, first of all, my parents took me to, one of the things that my parents did, they took me to an audiologist. They thought that I was deaf because of the fact that
Oh,
I wasn't responding to anybody who
okay.
calls my name and stuff. So the audiologist thought that, they said that I was fine. Like I was hearing, I had like good hearing. So it wasn't that. So we went back to the pediatrician that I went to, and they said
Okay.
that you gotta go to a neurologist. Like this
Okay.
is a bigger issue than with them. So went to a
Right.
neurologist and then got observed, tested, assessed, and everything. And that's where my autism diagnosis came from.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, yeah.
It's it's interesting too, because my mom knew there was something wrong with me like from a very, very early age, like a few months old.
Huh.
And what's so interesting about it too was like my mom took me to doctors, and doctors were like, "Oh, well, I'm the youngest in my family. I'm third of three." And the doctors were telling my mom, "Oh, well, it's just a third child thing. Oh, she's gonna be fine. She's just a little
That's,
delayed." It didn't make sense, right?
oh
Um,
yeah, that,
it doesn't make sense. and
no, no.
so one of my mom's friends showed her an article on autism, and when she saw that, she was like, "That's it, that's Michelle." And then she got me tested, and that's how I got my diagnosis.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, when my parents like kind of found out in a way, like in a way, it was also they learned a little knowledge about, like very little knowledge about it from a family friend of ours that coincidentally they do live here in Florida. And this was
Yeah.
and this was like way back before I was even living here. I was born in New York. I was diagnosed in New York.
Okay.
I don't know where you were originally from.
Yeah, I got diagnosed in Sarasota, Florida. And I've pretty much lived in Florida for a big majority of my life. But I also have lived in like Indiana for over like a decade. So
Wow.
yeah.
Huh.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I wanted to transition a little bit to where when you were telling earlier about with being a behavior analyst yourself, which is amazing. And as for me, I'm going through my own journey myself of building my career in the ABA field and everything, and I'll be taking my RBT exam real soon. So
Nice.
uh for you, like of because of your journey with going into the ABA field, like what was it with your speech therapist you said, like because of her clinic, did that inspire you a lot?
Yeah, it did. Working with the kids in that social skills camp was extremely inspirational. I was like, I want to do this. I don't want to do journalism.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's like a whole different direction than like I like I'm going back to a little bit of myself too, and I apologize, but so I like finding out so much of how similar
It's okay.
are. I just, it just amazes me because I'm like, where for me, I first got my first degree was a associate's degree for being a teacher assistant.
Okay.
That I gained experiences working with elementary school students on the spectrum. That was my main experience until coming down here, and I gained a whole new route of like working with more than one kind of disability, which is,
That's incredible.
yeah. So, um, but yeah, because of my prior experiences, and that was from in Jersey, back
Mhm.
in Jersey and everything, I was working with kids on the spectrum and what was quite fascinating was that the classroom I was in was using ABA therapy, which is so,
Oh,
yeah, they used in the public school district setting that was using ABA therapy in the classroom.
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that because the fact that they had a school behavior analyst
Hmm.
that would work with our classroom to see how the kids are making progress and everything. But I, as a paraprofessional, I was implementing a lot of the programs too that are very similar to what you know in the clinic
Yeah,
at home. So like that really inspired myself to go back to school for my bachelor's.
that's incredible. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, that's where this experience come from. I'm like, I completely get you about that.
Aw.
Yeah, I completely get you about that. I'm like, and did you have personal experiences? Like, did you receive ABA yourself
I
personally?
I yeah, so I did. So it's interesting, right? Because back in the 90s, ABA was like, how do I say this? It wasn't common, right?
Yeah.
So my mom had an autism coach. She didn't have a BCBA because the BACB didn't exist until 2001, I believe. So back in the 90s, they had these autism coaches that would come over to the house. They would do like parent training. They would teach my mom how to implement some of the programs that I was working on. And then my mom also had like aides and babysitters that would do the same thing. Like she would want to make sure that I'm generalizing my skills. And so it was very interesting. It lasted about like a year and a half in total. The biggest emphasis was on speech because speech was something that I was very delayed in.
Gotcha.
Didn't start talking until I was like 4.5 years old. And aside from that too, I had issues with like nonverbal cues. I had issues with basic language. And so that's where like the emphasis of my speech therapy really came in.
Interesting. Interesting. Just like you, like in regards to like all the services, like early intervention services, like I had a lot of speech therapy myself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I had a
It-
lot of it
it-
myself. Even like I didn't say my first word until the age of 6.
wow.
6 years old, and I didn't communicate fully in sentences until I was 10. That
Oh wow. Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't start
that's
communicating in sentences, I think, till about like 5. So I understand that.
yeah. So like that comes to show you of how with autism being such a spectrum, this is I want people to know that like right now, autism is a spectrum. It for everybody it's so different from
Mhm.
childhood to adulthood.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Meaning one person with autism means that you've met one autistic person. You haven't met the whole spectrum, you know?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And so to continue back about with ABA, I know with you had your experiences as like a clinical director and everything. So like have you ever had like colleagues like seek advice from you about from your views as an autistic when it comes to working with clients?
Absolutely. So I've had colleagues come up to me and really make sure that I'm being as culturally competent as possible. So, for example, when talking about our clients, we typically will say like autistic clients. And, like we always talk about making sure that we're honoring our clients. Client dignity is such a big deal. And so I really try to emphasize that with the RBTs that I work with. And, I've had some of them come up to me and say, like, from your perspective as an autistic person, is this intervention ethical or not? And, I think about that a lot because it's like I have children who engage in hand flapping, stereotypical behaviors
Right.
that I'm going to be honest, it's just, it's sensory. I mean, I flap my hands when I'm nervous and I'm excited,
Yeah.
so, but, how dare you try to reduce that, so my view on that is, unless it is impeding their skills, or if it's injurious, like if it's like injuring themselves or harming others, then I don't touch that, you know?
I agree with you. Like it's like a boundary wise, like you gotta know like realistically. You know that if you got an autistic client that's stimming, but it's not hurting themselves, like self-injury, there's
Right.
reason to reduce it. There's
Exactly.
to reduce it. Like you have to respect, like that's where again it goes into with client dignity and everything. You have to respect like what a person's into.
Exactly. Exactly. That is so big in this field. And it's so big for our
Um,
clients. Like they deserve the best treatment. And, they don't deserve someone saying, hey, put your hands down. Like let my clients stand. Let my clients dance around. Let my clients, script. Like let them have their output, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And just like to encourage like times of having it like when you're doing those sessions and everything, like to have those times. Because when you're like constantly going and like just keep on teaching, 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 it comes to a point where like yeah, you're not
Mhm.
gonna want to learn when you're constantly like, you know,
Yeah, when it's just drill, 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 drill.
yeah.
That's too much. That's
And
way too much.
yeah, I could say that for myself when it comes to in the classroom, like from my views in the classroom and everything, the kids do not like they can't like keep on learning for too long. Like they need a break because
Right.
they won't be motivated to learn.
Exactly, exactly. If we don't provide our kids with any sort of breaks, I mean, our kids can end up like really end up like escalating to any other like behaviors. And that's why it's so important to make sure that we're giving our kids, access to, take a step away from the environment, take a step away from the work. Let them be able to breathe. Let them be able to do what they need to do to calm themselves down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what a lot of therapists should really consider, that a lot of with RBTs and BCBAs as well, that they should
Yeah.
then their practices more. So that's a good point right there.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Mhm. So I know we talked about a little bit with that's like one tip, but is there like any more advice that you want to give to behavior analysts who are working with clients on the spectrum?
Keep in mind their family dynamic and cultural considerations. So, to give you an idea, with the job that I work in, I work with families that come from low socioeconomical, like that in particular environment.
Mhm.
And with those particular environments, they don't have access to ABA. And if it is, it's limited. Aside from that, their schools don't have a whole lot of resources either. And so we have to keep in mind the kind of dynamic that we're working with. We have to, keep up with the cultural aspect as well. I've had clients who are above the age of 10 who have never received ABA, but it's not because of a lack of trying, it's because of a lack of resources. And so when you're going into a client's home, you're a guest in their house at the end of the day. You want to make sure that you are being as courteous and as, willing to take feedback from parents. Like if I get told by a parent, hey, I don't want you to do this anymore, please change this, I'm going to change it. Because at the end of the day, yes, I am a BCBA. Yes, I am writing all the programs. I'm doing all of that. But at the end of the day, our parents and clients are our consumers. So we have to consider that as well.
Right. It's always you have to consider that. Absolutely. You have to consider like what their background is and everything. And I'm not sure if you heard like a while back, like a month ago, that there was a link that or a article that was out about and in our state in Florida about how what there was a bill signed with getting therapists into the schools.
Yes, I did hear about that.
I'm
So,
really
so nice.
hoping. Yeah, I'm really hoping that that keeps pushed forward because, especially like for for anybody that's going into the field like I am, and I have experience in the schools already, that would help so much. Like just to do the therapy work in the schools.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, no, that's
so
incredible.
yeah. So that's why I hope with that it will push forward and that more like schools in Florida will have therapists in working in the schools with the kids. Because
I
especially like you said
mhm.
that with the families you have, the clients and their families, that you're working with that are coming from a tough background and everything. And
Mhm.
so like to get that kind of support in the schools would be so helpful.
It would be. I wish that that was a common thing across, all across the country, because if our kids need behavioral supports in schools, we want to make sure that we're providing that behavioral support. And, if like, let's say we do go into the school, another piece of advice is to keep in mind the school that you're going to, and also keep in mind of the classroom dynamic as well. That's definitely a big one because, you never know
Hmm.
what you're walking into. And if you notice that like there's a teacher who does things one way and we want to try and accommodate her to only teach one way to one specific client, that's probably not going to work, you know.
No.
So we have to understand that again, like we are a guest in their classroom. We do as the teacher says, and then we help our clients as needed. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. It's very similar to kind of like what I do in the classroom. Like like I'm an assistant, I work one-to-one with a student. And
Okay.
so, and this student is in a general education classroom. Like they're in a regular mainstream classroom. It's just that like, yes, like the teacher, I pretty much follow what the teacher says, like in terms of like providing the modifications and accommodations for the student and everything.
Mhm.
There are times I felt like that there are things that I felt like of strategies that I've implemented that helped a little bit more than others. And
Yeah.
but it's important to, but my point is that like I've always communicated
Mhm.
ideas if it works, and my teacher has used them herself. So
That's amazing.
really, I think that's important to consider for even in the field as well with, you know, like for the RBTs, if you have an idea that has been working for a client, communicate that. Oh,
That is so huge in my opinion. And I'm
yeah.
so glad you said that because, at the end of the day, right? So our families are with our clients the most, right? Teachers are also with our clients, for a certain amount of hours as well.
Yeah.
RBTs are there for the designated amount of therapy hours. BCBAs are there anywhere between 5 to 10% a month. So I might think something like, okay, I want to do this intervention, but if my RBTs notice, hey, they respond better if you do this, I absolutely consider that. And I'll say, okay, show me what you've been doing, and then let's put it into a plan. Because that, to me, if I'm not collaborating with my RBTs, I'm not going to have a good rapport with my RBTs. And that's something that really means a lot to me as a BCBA. I don't want to be that BCBA who's like, this is what we're going to do. It's my way or the highway. That's not me. I want to make
No.
sure that I am collaborating as closely and as the collaboration is as fluid as possible, not just with like my RBTs and my families, but with any other service providers, teachers, OT,
Mhm.
speech therapy. I've collaborated with a psychiatrist once, like there's a variety of providers out there that I can easily collaborate with, but it's all about making sure that that communication is strong.
Yeah, communication is absolutely key. It
It is.
really is. It really is absolutely the key there. So
Yeah.
I I want to wrap this up with one last thing, and I
Okay.
know this has been very big in our community, that the fact that with people like myself who are pursuing work in the ABA field, like what is your advice do you have for autistic people that are pursuing work in the ABA field?
Man, that's a good question. I would say that the autistic community definitely has a bias against ABA. Don't let that stop you. My biggest piece of advice too with that is, if you notice that something just doesn't sit right with you, whether that be an intervention, whether that be a prompting technique, speak up. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing something that doesn't make you feel comfortable, you're going to end up bottling it in and then it's going to explode one day. Don't let that happen because like at the end of the day, we teach our clients to advocate for themselves, but we need to also remind our RBTs and other BCBAs and other people, we also have to advocate for ourselves. So I would say, don't be afraid, advocate, and also I guess like, use your experience to your advantage, right? Like you've been kind of in their shoes, not really, but kind of, and so if you want to be treated a certain way, like if you want to be treated with respect, you have to also respect your clients at the end of the day.
Yeah, I absolutely. You know, like we've like we all of us have where we've had like our own parents like advocating for us, and we've learned over time. Now it's time to teach it to our clients and everything and our students, so that way they can for themselves. And also when it comes to in the field that advocating for their needs is so important. And if something does not work, definitely speak up.
Absolutely.
I can agree more about that.
Yes, I hear that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Michelle, I want to thank you so much for coming on to share from your perspective. And just this was such a great conversation and everything. I absolutely loved it. And I hope that this will definitely help with ABA companies and even just for autistic people in general who are pursuing work in the ABA field. Like I know I've been working on my journey and everything, just going even towards with it, starting out as an RBT and everything, going more into the field, even though like I have more so of the education perspective, but just to have that background is a good start. Uh,
Aw,
so thank you, Michelle.
thank you so much. It was lovely talking with you.
Thank you. And for everyone, if you don't follow me already, make sure you follow me as Self Advocate MV. My professional profile name is Exceptional Shell. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, TikTok, you name it. I also have a YouTube channel that has all the guest interviews on them. So definitely follow that. And follow my blog website, The World of Autism. Awesome. Thank you again, Michelle.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.